which I think will kind of open us up and speak more to the title of this piece, to the title of this panel, um, and really just let the audience learn a little bit more about you all. So the last question is, what excites you most about your future in the crypto art space? And we'll go back in order, starting from the top with you, Mike. What's exciting you most about this crypto art space in the future?
Man, man. First, I just want to say I'm just so humbled to be on the panel with such amazing minds. Um, yeah, I'm just in a really a great space of gratitude. Um, Really quickly, I want to tell you guys a quick story. So, just historical context. Around the 1920s, there was a real estate, right? It was kind of hence branded and where he works in. There was a real estate kind of who was heavy in real estate. His name was William E. Harmon. He started something called the Harmon Foundation, and with that foundation, he put on these exhibitions. Uh, he was a white gentleman who put on these. First, he was building these playgrounds, but he put on these exhibitions specifically for Black art. And at the time, it was a radical idea, right? And he would make sure that these art shows would be in spaces where both Black and whites could enter the space and engage with. So sometimes they were even navigating different YMCA. I bring this up because at the time there was a gentleman named Palmer Hayden. Palmer Hayden was a janitor at the time, and he entered the competition and won first prize. He then goes on to go to school in Paris, and then he's collected by collectors that work with works like Matisse, right? So I think about that. That was 100 years ago. Then I think about what One Off is doing, right? I think about this idea of curator, right? Um, how can this crypto black crypto art space allow somebody that may not even know that they're an artist, navigate that space, reimagine that space, right? I think about the real estate that One Off is doing, and then it makes me think about amazing projects like Project Row House, where Rick Lowe was thinking about these row houses in Third Ward Houston, and he saves them, and they become these incubator spaces for artists to articulate and think of their work, right? I think about the Dusable Museum. I think about Southside Community Center. So I say all that to say I get really excited, right? Because what I believe One Off is doing in a really beautiful way is creating a cultural black art district, right? In this metaverse is creating an opportunity in space, right? For curators like myself to come and bring these really amazing exhibitions um, that can engage um, with 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 people all over the world, right? Then I start to dream and think about what about these permanent collections. I work with a lot of historical universities, and I think about these ideas of like how can the permanent collections, right? How can the works of the past kind of engage with the contemporary work? And I dream about these concepts, right? Of what would it mean for in the metaverse, right? On this one-off parcel to have an exhibition where you have a Hero Tanner or you have a Ramir Beard um, high res image of this work, and then you have a response work by crypto art, right? Where they can have direct conversation juxtaposing these different times. And so I'm excited because I think that what this really offers, right, is opportunity. Opportunity to further engage really with the historical past of what black artists have already done and created and kind of the contemporary spirit of what we're going to create in the future, right? In a way that we can deal with the materiality of permanent collections, right? And showing those and then kind of have that, right, cross pollinate with this metaverse in this crypto in a really beautiful way. So I get really excited about that. And also something that I learned, right, because I'm new to this space as a traditional curator, is so many times when I work with exhibitions or artists make a work that they really want to touch people. The collector that buys the work, hides it in their beautiful home that is only open to a select few. So this work isn't really accessible, right? But with this blockchain technology, right, you're able to engage and create a work and sell the work, but still have the opportunity to view the work. Continually have these works in circulations, exhibitions to educate and engage. So what does that mean for like the pipeline of crypto art curate, right? What does that mean for like institutions like Spelman uh, and Clark Atlanta who already are navigating with blockchain technology when they start to have students that are having parcels that they can curate as curators. So that's why I get really excited. Um, uh, niece, right? My niece, beautiful, man, Ellington is like 5 years old, right? And she plays Roblox, and I'm seeing her navigate this metaverse in a beautiful way, and I'm like, this is the future. And so, how can I navigate with that? And so that's something I really get excited about, of dreaming of, like how this can be a really thoughtful space, uh, to create a new pipeline of curatorial promise, right? To create a new level of accessibility, to create exhibitions that can cross pollinate throughout the African diaspora, that someone in South Africa can have a conversation with their work in the American South, in Kentucky can have a conversation with some Black artist that's living in Japan. And so I really get excited about kind of the agency, and the possibility. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm truly vested in it, why I still navigate the traditional curatorial sense within the exhibition. Um, so that's kind of why. Just dreaming, just formulating ideas and just really leaning into the possible.
Mike, that was beautifully said, man. Beautifully said. Um, Pivoting to Micah, what excites you most about the crypto art space?
Um, for me, it's about bringing in the physical art world too. Like to Mike's point, like you're going to start seeing a shift. The more people are paying attention, and now you've seen it since even like the beginning of this year. The people that are in the space versus how it was in February, March. It's grown to numbers I can't even like describe, right? And I think it's going to be really cool because we spoke about this earlier in the physical art world. Like to Mike's point, like it's in one person's house, only a few people can see it, right? And that was what gives it the value and the scarcity and all that. But in the crypto art world, you kind of flip it on its head, and it's like the more it's shared, the more it's viewed, the more valuable it is. So I think that's going to be that's what really excites me, is that potential to have your work out there for everybody to see in an instant and spark conversations amongst groups of people across the world. And that work still have value. That work still, you're not, as an artist, you're not diluting your market at all, right? Like it's not like pumping out prints, it's like, this is an original, yet everybody can see it, and that's what gives it value. Like we spoke about like that sovereignty work on the billboard in Los Angeles. And it's like, once that was announced and put on the billboard, it's like that kind of like increased the value of it. And as an artist, that's exciting because it's like, I don't have to, like a lot of my physical works, I don't ever get to see. They're all unstretched. I ship them out and I won't ever see them. I never see them stretched, right? And maybe the only collector and his friend sees it. But now with that sovereignty piece, like everybody sees it, physical, digital world doesn't matter. So I think that's what I'm really excited about, is like that blending of the physical and digital world, and physical artists understanding that they can have their work shown to the whole world, yet, not dilute their market.
Awesome, awesome. And I do think that's a beautiful kind of analogy. In the crypto art space, a lot of this artwork is public. It's on display for everyone to see. And at the same time, simultaneously, we know who the owners of it are, right? So having your artwork on a physical billboard is there. Everyone can see it. But again, we still know who the physical owners are. And those two things can coexist in a beautiful way on the blockchain. Lady Phoenix, what excites you most about the future for the crypto art space?
I'm super excited about music. I think that there's a huge disruption right now in the music space. And one way that we can get in, see, like I think about it like this: there's certain domains that we as original people, we just own them. It's just natural. And I think like, creative expression around music and visual art are two places, architecture too, but that's another conversation, are two domains that we really have to step up and be like, okay, we really do own this. Like soul music, you call it soul music for a reason. Like we really bring the vibe to music. We have the sonic vibes down. And now we're saying that we own this region or this corner of creativity. And so I see music as being one of those avenues that we as original people can step up and be like, okay, we're sovereign here. You know, we're not going to make billions of dollars for all of these record companies and get barely 1% of that, right? And so for me, blockchain and music, specifically audio reactive NFTs, are the place that I see those two domains coming together in a really nice synergy. You know, visual artists teaming up with sonic artists and creating or capsulizing something super dope. You know, I mean, they've been doing it. They just didn't have a name or a phrase or a label or a title for it. And so audio NFTs would be that lane or that category that they can fit in and really start to do that. I always give the example of Missy Elliott, I Can't Stand the Rain. Like, we knew this song already. It was already out there with an elder. She remixed it, but if we didn't have those visuals, right, for her song, it wouldn't have been, the experience of listening to the music wouldn't have been as elevating as, you know, as it was when we combined the visuals with the audio, right? Hence audio reactive, like the choreographed movements, even her, you know, the wardrobe, all of that was in reaction to the actual music or the sonics, right? So I think that audio reactive NFTs is a really, really ripe space for both visual artists and sonic artists. So I'm super excited about that.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. Just to kind of bring it back, the artists that we've worked with, the most part have been visual artists, but there are a few Black artists that we're in community with that do both, right? They produce audio NFTs, they produce the visuals that go along with the music, and you're right, it's a very beautiful combination to see those two disciplines kind of cross-pollinate on the blockchain. So very excited for that, and very excited for audio NFTs coming down the pipeline. Up next, we're going to go to Kai. You know, tell me what you're most excited about for the future of crypto art.
So I'm really excited about, you know, three things. The first is, you know, how do we lower the barrier to create and collect and allow, you know, more people to own and participate, you know, in this, you know, creative expression. And so going back again, I feel like the same way that Instagram made, you know, everyone an amateur photographer, you know, crypto art has the potential to make, you know, everyone an artist. And so I think we need, you know, better fiat on ramps, you know, kind of mobile first, you know, ways to interact with and purchase this art. We need more education about crypto wallets and how to, you know, interact with blockchain networks. And I think that it's a great on ramp to bring Black communities, you know, into the crypto ecosystem. And then the second area is more ways to collect together. Yeah, I feel like we're in, you know, kind of this first phase of single player mode versus the real potential of a multiplayer mode of collection. So one of my favorite pieces is you know, Choose the Man You Will Become by Asanachi. And it's this, you know, fashioned after a poster that you'd see in a barbershop with all the different hairstyles that you can get. And you can actually purchase one of the squares, one of the men on this poster, and then it's programmable so you can change, you know, the appearance of that man, whether it's a silhouette or whether the hair is dyed or the same. And, you know, you and your friends can, you know, own pieces of this together, and you can use it to communicate, you know, a broader kind of collective expression. So I think there's a ton of potential there. And then lastly, you know, more ways to display, both in the physical world, you know, and the digital world. And what I love about this is that, you know, public blockchains like Ethereum, you know, they're open platforms. And so they create this incredible opportunity for anyone to build, and particularly Black entrepreneurs to be able to create more ways to, you know, display and showcase, you know, crypto art. And so the art that I'm collecting today, you know, there are not a ton of ways that I can easily display it, but I'm excited that there will be a ton of ways in the future that are built. So I think there's a huge opportunity to figure out, you know, what are the best ways to be able to display collections.
Absolutely. I think just to speak on that last point, displaying the artwork is pivotal. That's still a really real pain point within the space. There are some solutions out there. I personally own, you know, a digital art frame, and it's very nice to see the digital collection on display, but I do think there's much more room for innovation in the space in the future. And also excited to see what comes down, what solutions come down. Up next, Brandon, B, what are you most excited about in the crypto future?
I would just say probably the social impact aspect of it all. For me and my own personal journey and participating in this venture with One Off, for me, it's been extremely rewarding and gratifying to be able to take sort of my skill set that's in an area where I don't see a lot of people that look like me. I don't interact with a lot of people that look like me. And I'm certainly not sort of empowering people that look like me from a, just working in finance historically. But in this space and this platform has given me an opportunity to sort of take my skill sets and apply it in a way that can make real impact and change in the lives of people that look just like me, which I'm extremely thankful for. So everything that I'm doing as it relates to One Off is all about how can we kind of build this community? How can we empower curators? How can we create jobs for curators? How can we create opportunities for archivists, artists, collectors? How can we really onboard all of these different key stakeholders that are a part of the arts and cultural space, and really provide a platform that gives them the opportunity to really own their own works and reap the financial benefits and rewards from their own creativity and content. And so for me, I'm really excited when I think about the big picture vision, telling that story about how many artists were able to come into this space and have a life-changing experience or opportunity for themselves, really all across the board. And just really having this opportunity to try to make that happen is something that I'm personally just very, very excited for. I think we'll look back on this space and this opportunity 10, 15 years from now, and just be amazed by all of the life-changing experiences and new opportunities that were created, for artists, curators, archivists, collectors in this space. And I'm just really happy to be able to try to, turn that into a reality.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate having you here on board. Appreciate everyone kind of being in community. Last but most certainly not least, Ameer, man, what excites you about the crypto future?
A lot, everything, honestly. I mean, okay, so going to Kai's point, right? And I think thankfully as a designer, and as someone who thinks of behavioral science, like it's very integral that we make sure that the work that we build is accessible, and that does require education, which is part and parcel, which is the why we're all aligned, because of the impetus to show people how to get involved and how to be a part of the system, right? Like building educational programming around this, right? That's the first thing. The second thing that I'm really excited about is how we create a more frictionless environment in which folks can navigate between these two spaces. One of the things that may even be possible is how do we even create an environment in which they're interacting with the crypto space without even knowing about it? You know what I mean? I think that could be a very interesting means of like removing the word crypto from like the context of what you're interacting with, although the work that you're getting is a form of crypto media like this NFT. The third thing that I love is the fact that NFTs are just a medium of expression and how we can actually build our work, and the conversation that we're creating between collectors and active participants within the system of those who indulge in our work, right? Because the whole point and purpose of a non-fungible token is that it has a set of rules, has a set of contracts. And these contracts enable us it's what sets up the royalties that happen instantaneously. It's what sets up the means of stewardship and how someone owns and interacts with your work, right? It could also lead to all types of other things in which we can create multiple levels of provenance between how we can collaborate between multiple artists and have them all a part of the same ledger, right? And as that space gets more and more innovative, we'll be able to do much more creative things with how this medium of expression is afforded to us. So I'm very excited about how we stretch the concept of what an NFT, what a unique asset this artwork could be. And the first stage, of course, is like the pairing between sonics and visual art. The next thing could be the idea that I met someone who's coded an entire book within an NFT, and that they built a website that when you put in the token address, that it reads that book back to you. So that's like another interesting way in which like we can engage in this type of content, right? That's also interactive and engaging. And so that's what I'm very excited about. And then the last thing that I'm very excited about, and the stuff that, you know, that I feel like I want to be a part of, I want to be that intersection in which commerce takes place, right? I want to be that marketplace that enables that type of wide variety of experimentation with NFTs in this medium, you know, being something that's frictionless, that allows people to interact with this work and collect this work in a very meaningful way, and something that's impactful, but also really like hammer the head upon this idea that when you are buying this work, like Kai said, like you're creating a conversation, you're buying this social interaction between yourself and the artist, that we really drive that point home. That we say that you're not only are you supporting this artist, but you're an active participant in their community. And what does that mean, right? Like when you buy a stock, when you invest in a stock, you're not actively contributing to the value that that stock can generate, right? Like you may tell people about Apple, but ultimately Apple is going to have to be the people that invent the new iPhone or the new like MacBook or whatever the case is, and you're an indirect participant of value generation. But when you buy into crypto, whether that's a cryptocurrency or a non-fungible token, this is the only place where you're an active participant in the success, where your sweat equity actually means something, where your sweat equity actually can derive an exponential amount of value to not just the artist involved, but to yourself. And so I think being able to be a platform that actually really drives that point home, for all types of communities, but especially our own and our diaspora community, I think is invaluable. So that's something I'm super excited about.
That is beautiful, Amir, man. Again, I do want to acknowledge the fact that, you know, over the past several weeks, you know, through One Off, we've had the pleasure of talking with all of these amazing visionaries on the panel today, but it was really important for us to make sure that the broader community could participate, could kind of get insight into and be able to ask questions of the space in this panel. So at this time, we're going to transition to a very brief Q&A session. Again, I noticed that along the way, kudos to Ameer, Lady Phoenix, and everyone else. They've been answering some of the questions in the chat. But at this moment, I do want to open up the floor for Q&A questions. You can ask a question in the chat, and then we will throw it out to the broader panel. All right, we got one question from Angie C. Asking, what are good places to see crypto art? I'm definitely going to take an opportunity to do a shameless plug. So this upcoming Monday, again, the exhibition is titled Beyond Provenance, Speculative Black Futures on the Blockchain. If you go to xx1off.art, you can register for the show, and then you'll receive an email that is a portal into the exhibition. It is going to be the largest showcase of Black art on the blockchain. International in its scope. It features artists from 7 different countries. It is artwork sourced from several different crypto art marketplaces. And in its own right, it is going to be something of note for the immutable record of the blockchain. Just so there's no dispute that Black artists were here contributing to this movement in a very real and significant way. So the show, Black Futures on the blockchain will open up on Monday. That's definitely an opportunity to view crypto art.
I'll also say, to add to that, that we're going to have I'm hosting a Clubhouse room. So if you have the Clubhouse app, you can follow me at Sirsu on there. And I'll be hosting a live reaction kind of like walkthrough to the space as well. So anyone who is actively in the space, you can kind of open it up on your phone. And then we can kind of talk about the stuff and interview some of the artists and everything related to that.
All right. Appreciate it, and also appreciate you dropping a link to the show in the chat. We got one question from Gary. Gary's asking, what is the biggest pain point for growth of the Black crypto art space?
I would say that's the collector base. Without the collectors, it doesn't matter, how many artists we onboard, to these platforms. If we want Black art to end up in the homes and collections of Black people, then we really need to get busy cultivating the collector base. And that's what we do at Universe Contemporary. We cultivate both the collector base and the artists, but we have a huge focus on the collector base. And so right now we're tapped in to 150 collectors. Most of those people are whales, and they're also white. So myself, I've made a big effort to host rooms on Clubhouse and be a part of conversations on Clubhouse. And if anybody is interested in what Clubhouse is or even being on there, I'm sure that among us here, we have invites. If you really want to be a part of the conversations and learn more, I encourage you to reach out or even drop it here in chat that you're interested. A lot of the conversations are happening there, and I've been able to tap in with a number of Black collectors who are interested. And so I'm fervently building up the Black collector base so that Black collectors can actually start holding the future works of Black crypto artists. That's the pain point I see.
No, I think that was beautiful. Thank you.
I would agree with that too. I would definitely agree with that. I would also say, from a platform perspective, and of course, platforms are businesses, right? But at the same time, a lot of these platforms don't allow or don't have really good curatorial tools to enable you to really search, and kind of like find the type of artwork that you might be looking for. And it's always been a very interesting question, from a user experience perspective or even information architecture perspective of how to map out when you have a vast variety of work that's kind of coming in. How do you sort of organize and categorize that stuff, especially when the context of art can rapidly change, right? So that's definitely something that's an issue. And I think one of the things that has exacerbated that fact is that a lot of these platforms, these folks do not have real artists in their C-suite or in their at a high position that they consult with on a consistent basis. They're not necessarily really working with curators or traditional institutions or poaching folks from those institutions to really figure out how they can actually market and curate and talk about art in an artist perspective, and even from a curator's perspective, right? So, and we already have this issue where we have a very small sample of collectors, but a large amount of artists. And so far, the conversation has been about the artists having the onus on themselves 100% to try to promote themselves. But when you have, let's say, 20,000 artists trying to promote their work to only a select handful of collectors, it gets kind of unruly, especially when it's a lot of loud voices, but not a lot of very concerted effort to say, I'm a collector and I'm interested in this kind of work. I would love to see work that's rooted around this type of thing, or something that might be sort of loosely related. How can we create those nodes to bring out some of the other characteristics of work that they like, but they couldn't articulate, right? And I think that's part and parcel of a platform's job to try to bridge the gap between that. I think it's also a job of curators and inviting curators to come to these spaces and partner with these platforms to try to build those bridges. And they're not doing a lot of that either. So I think exposure and to the wealth and diversity of talent and work that exists in this space is dampened by the fact that platforms don't necessarily have a lot of those connectors together, or not building it out in their platform entirely. So.
Thank you for that, Ameer.
Absolutely. If I could just add to that too, because I think Ameer and Lady Phoenix are absolutely spot on about, collectors being the biggest hurdle. And just wanted to talk about, from one-off's perspective, the way that we're trying to approach and help accelerate, getting more collectors into the space is we'll be coming out with a product that will basically be a membership card specifically for collectors in the space, where we'll, like, if you are a person that is looking for, art, Black art specifically, we will be able to sort of give you opportunities to consume that art. We'll also be able to help you identify who those artists are, where those works exist. And so the benefits of being a member is that we really kind of allow you to be immersed in the Black crypto art space more closely. And because we have a lot of the data and know who these artists are, we can try to accelerate one's ability to get up to speed in the space and find those works. So I think collectively we all realize that we need to bring our community into this space, and we're all working together to try to make that happen in a myriad of different ways. But that's just something I wanted to contribute.
Thank you. B, always the one-off plug. We're gonna pivot one more question from Esther. Esther says, "Hi everyone. One of my biggest concerns are the aesthetic limitations placed on Black artists practicing in the traditional market will be replicated in the crypto art market, i.e., figurative/portraiture work. How is this being addressed, if at all, or is it too early to name?"
Can you say that one more time? And thank you, Esther, for the question.
Yep. So one more time, Esther's saying that one of her biggest concerns are that the aesthetic limitations placed on Black artists practicing in the traditional art market will be replicated in the crypto art space. So some of the traditional limitations that she's listed here are figurative/portraiture work. And then asking, is that being addressed, if at all, or is it too early to kind of speak to that?
I think we're probably a little too early to speak to it because that hasn't been addressed to my knowledge. Yeah, but my concern would be that artists who come into the space have that limitation in mind, and naturally, without there being the social pressure or the cultural pressure from the crypto community, they replicate that. So that would be more of my concern, is that they think they have to remain within the confines of the traditional art space and bring that over into the crypto art space. But from what I've witnessed and been a part of, Black folks are making whatever, for if they're working in 3D models, especially, those are not necessarily figurative or, you know, portraiture in any way. That's all kind of wild stuff, especially folks working in like VR NFTs. They're building whole worlds, so the thought of whether that's like, quote, Black art or, Black figurative art and all of that, and like that's all they can do. What I love about this space is those conversations aren't even being had. Like Carlos, who's Afro Latino, is doing whatever. And the fact that he's, identified as Afro Latino, I don't see that ever coming up in conversation regarding what he can and cannot make. The space is so new. Someone asked, kind of what is the history essentially of crypto art in terms of aesthetics. And then the chat was, Ameer and I chimed in and was saying historically, the aesthetic was that they made portraits of Vitalik, who's the founder of Ethereum, or, portraits of Satoshi, who's the founder of Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin symbol or Ethereum symbol. And that was considered crypto art because it had those cultural aesthetics, right? Crypto cultural aesthetics. But now it's fair game. Anybody's in the space, they can make whatever they want, and there are no limitations. I think the limitations that I've experienced are more about gender and not necessarily related to, quote, race. As far as the crypto culture is concerned, they think they don't have a racial problem or a racial issue. So I would just leave it at that.
No, thank you for Later Phoenix. I think I heard Esther responded, music to my ears. I know Esther, excited to have you make your entryway into the crypto art space, both as a collector and as an artist. pivoting one more question before we wrap up here. We have it. It says, do we need to create slash rethink the business model for artists to get better compensated? Or is the blockchain technology inherent, or wait, or is the blockchain inherently providing this better alternative for artists to earn off of their work? So one more time, do we need to create slash rethink the business model for artists to get better compensated, or is the blockchain technology inherently creating a better alternative for artists to earn off of their work?
I can take this real quick. So historically, when these art exchanges first started, like when Known Origin popped up, Super Rare popped up back in 2018, royalties weren't even actually a part of the discussion. And artists had to fight for that, right? So when we look at the blockchain and they thought of provenance and they thought of this historical record of tracking, they're like, well, wait a minute. If we can track the cycle of art, then we're effectively kind of ending, or at least attempting to end and solve the issue that traditional artists had about how they couldn't track or see where their art was being bought and sold, especially if people were holding like private conventions or conversations and selling their art kind of like without the proper channels or without lawyers or without anything present to document this type of stuff, right? So artists wouldn't be able to understand or know where their stuff was going. And so because the blockchain was much more transparent, they're like, well, wait a minute, if that's the case, then if we know where our art is at all times, shouldn't we be compensated, of course, on top of that? And that was a conversation they had to fight with these art exchanges, or these art marketplaces on to recognize that, yeah, we should probably do that. And so that's what started the idea of embedding royalties in these smart contracts. And so I think, to answer the question, creating or rethinking, I think we always have to continue to think about how artists should be fairly compensated for their work, about how these platforms and how these entities and how communities and collectors respect the artist's work, and that we get rid of the starving artist paradigm that lady was talking about earlier, and something that has been on my mind, the forefront of my mind ever since I got into art, right? And so I think blockchain enables us to have a very transparent conversation about compensation that we wouldn't be able to have in other means. But of course, we still have to work with lawyers and talk about IP. We still have to work with, the idea of how we handle and deploy our work, across chains or across other people's hands. Of course, we have to think about the business implications of how tokens can be valued, so on and so forth. So it's always going to be an active conversation, I think. No one's going to get it right at 100%. I think there's always going to be new paradigms that shift how artists can be rewarded, or how artists can be compensated, and how folks in their community can be rewarded for their contribution to this artist's greatness. And I think we also have to recognize too that, in a perfect world, it'd be great if everyone could have, this type of success that this artist Beeple had, for example, where he sold $3.5 million of these edition NFTs, right? Like it would be great for every artist to sort of have that kind of breakout moment. But if not, if we're able to at least create something that's sustainable for them to have a meaningful life and a meaningful growth with the type of compensation that they can get, then that's something to aspire to as well. So blockchain inherently creates a better conversation, but doesn't create an inherent better alternative. That's still something that we as platform developers, as folks who are shepherding in this space, and any type of participant has to actively be keyed in on in part of that conversation, and use our voice to make sure artists are fairly compensated for that work, in my opinion.
Ameer, man, I think that is a beautiful note to end on. Because what I heard you say was there are great strides that have been taken and the technology has gotten us here, but there's definitely still work to do in the future, right? So I want to have an opportunity, if everyone in the audience would join me in a virtual round of applause for all of our panelists coming here today. Absolutely appreciate you all. Again, I don't take for granted the fact that I've had the conversation, the opportunity to sit with you all and hear your visions, but the fact that now we've had this in a public forum, this recording will be downloaded and made available to the public, and it will also be added to the exhibition Beyond Provenance, Speculative Black Futures on the Blockchain, which opens on Monday. it'll be available there within the information center. So one more time, my name is Herman Marini, one of the founders of One Off, and we look forward to seeing you all at the show on Monday. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead and end this panel discussion now. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
This has
Thank
been
you,
awesome.
guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.